I just
Thank you.
jump in? The only reason I didn't want to crowd out the Secretary said, but I was on the Welsh Assembly when the current local government funding formula was brought in some 20 years ago. And I just gently want to point out that a lot of Labour members of local authorities in areas like Monmouthshire think it's deeply unfair because, of course, it's entirely the responsibility of the Welsh Assembly to decide how much each of the 22 local authorities get what, how much they actually get. And there is a perception, I'm afraid, which is shared by Labour councillors in some rural areas, that when that formula was drawn up, it unfairly discriminated against rural areas, which just happened to be, and I'm sure this was a coincidence, areas that weren't run by Labour local authorities. So I think before we start talking about fairness for local authorities, it would be worth having a look at the formula and perhaps having a chat with councillors from different political parties across Wales and finding out why it is that most of the funding seems to end up concentrated in the South Wales Valleys local authorities and not getting out to the rural areas. And I could go into a fair bit of detail as to why that is. It's to do with the way sparsity is calculated, percentage of elderly people in a local authority area, the way in which deprivation is calculated, which seems to favour areas where there are people claiming benefits rather than people earning lower than average wages. It's a very complicated issue, but it's definitely not one that the UK government can solve, unfortunately. I wish it were.
I agree that there are issues, and I, like you, could go into detail in terms of the funding formula in Wales, but ultimately we're centrally funded from central government, so we need sufficient funding to be able to then devolve that to the regions on an equitable basis, as you suggested.
You know, I don't want to jump in, but of course we can only fund the Welsh Government. We can't tell the Welsh Government to spend it on local authority funding. And there have been instances in the past, for example, over business rate relief, where we've awarded, the UK government has awarded extra money to the Welsh Government, but it certainly hasn't been spent in the way that was expected. But of course, it would be against the law for us to hypothecate money and to say, we're going to give you a whole load of extra money to the Welsh Government and you must spend it on local authorities. And I'd be interested, in fact, whether Ms Winter and Labour MPs would support hypothecation of funding for local authorities from the UK government. I'd be surprised,
well,
if you were, that would be...